We are also, for the first time, hearing the Albuquerque police chief's reaction to his officers becoming convicted criminals, admitting they participated in that enterprise for years. It's a criminal scheme we now dated back to 1995, spanning generations of the department's DWI unit. KRQE investigative reporter Ann Perret sat down with the APD's chief, who says beyond the emotions, the confessions have helped him continue to clean up the department.
After the feds served the first search warrants 1 year ago in January 2024, the Albuquerque Police Department started its own internal investigation. The chief tells me they've uncovered quite a bit, handed over what they legally could share with the FBI, but as is typical, the feds aren't sharing anything back. So when the confessions finally started coming out last month, Chief Harold Medina says they pored over the documents for insight and direction on who else could be involved.
It's just really shocking to me, like, how that line could have been crossed.
Hard to comprehend how his fellow police officers became so close to a defense attorney and his paralegal.
It was we're one team, you're one team, we want a conviction, you want them to get off, and it didn't mesh. And I just never had those relationships.
Chief Harold Medina has known and worked alongside or above all 13 officers his department's connected to the scheme, which involved accepting bribes from an Albuquerque law firm to get their clients' DWI cases dismissed or never filed.
These are individuals that I've known during the course of my career, and just to see that they fell into this and they got involved in this is devastating.
So far, 3 of them, who most recently worked in the DWI unit, have admitted to their roles: Neil Elsman, Honorio Alba Jr., and Joshua Montano.
The most disappointing one for me is Josh Montano.
We've previously reported a drunk driver hit and hospitalized Montano in 2022, and his family spoke to us then about the financial hit they'd take during his recovery.
Being that he's out of work, and then when he does return to work, it's going to be light duty, so it just cuts our income right in half.
Chief Medina says when he visited his officer at the hospital, he handed Montano's wife a couple $100s, and we know more than 200 others contributed to his GoFundMe page, garnering more than $17,000 for his family.
And it just like this sense of like betrayal, like you want to care so much for these officers, you showed how much you cared for them, and then something like this happens, and it just totally just brings to prospect how you just never know.
With each officer's conviction came a 15-plus page plea agreement, which laid out the details of how the criminal enterprise operated, how the officers got away with it, and how long they were involved. Their confessions revealed a coordinated effort with attorney Thomas Clear III and his paralegal, Ricardo Rick Mendez, not to show up to criminal and administrative DWI court hearings, and protection from, quote, more senior APD officers.
It does make sense, and it's extremely concerning, and I'm waiting for this to see where this all turns out.
We obtained the disciplinary files for all 13 APD officers named so far and found if they received a miscourt notice on their record, they rarely faced discipline. The most severe punishments were written reprimands. One officer received a suspension, but there's a note that it wasn't served right away.
Is that the doing of these more senior officers?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's part of the internal affairs process. That's part of the review. That's part of what we're still assessing. We will have answers at some point.
The chief says those, quote, more senior officers could be former members of the DWI unit who received promotions and moved to different departments throughout the past 3 decades. We know at least one went to the internal affairs unit, but Chief Medina isn't convinced internal affairs is entirely to blame. While the IA team triages missed court notices now, the chief says prior to 2020, those were handled by an officer's supervisor.
I now have to look at individual chains of command for traffic, lieutenants, sergeants, where they may have gone out into the field, who the different people may have been, and how they could have handled missed court notices. So it's going to take a long time, but I've committed to this. We will follow up, and we will do as much as we can to cover what we can.
And that's included looking into officers no longer with the department, because in his plea deal, Attorney Clear admitted he started this criminal enterprise in 1995. So Chief Medina knows more than just these 13 officers will be implicated.
I think we have the tip of the iceberg right there, 13. Everybody seems to be like 2012, 10-ish forward. We're missing 15 years worth of officers in there. So yes, without a doubt, that number is going to grow exponentially.
Do you think anybody is still working here who may have been involved?
Do I have suspicions? Yes, I think there could be a couple more left that we're still on the fence with. Are they being investigated? Yes. Are we on the fence about it? Yes.
For any retired officers identified, Chief Medina is going after their police certification. He says he's also spoken with the state's Department of Public Safety Secretary concerning Tim McCarson, who was just added to the Giglio list in connection to this investigation. McCarson retired in 2022, and as we've previously reported, then took over a contract with the state to train officers across New Mexico on how to recognize drugged and drunk drivers. We just learned today the state has ended that contract. Back to you.
All right. Thank you, Ann. 2 of the 13 Albuquerque police officers named in connection to the scandal are on administrative leave. The others retired or resigned rather than interviewing with Internal Affairs. In addition to the BCSO deputy who pleaded guilty today, the feds also named a BCSO undersheriff in relation to the scheme who resigned over the weekend. And 1 New Mexico State police officer is on paid administrative leave.